Welcome back, everyone. It's been a while. I don't know where to begin with this show, to be honest. Quite frankly,
I really
where I sit. No.
I sit as really liking this season. I think that by the time this is out, I'll have a review of The Boys on the Nerd Academy podcast, and kind of the through line of that conversation was not a whole lot of people are doing American political satire quite like The Boys is right now. I don't think
it's not satire; it's just a documentary at this point.
You're not wrong.
A documentary before it happens, whatever the hell that is.
It's a pre-documentary. But no, I really like this season. I think that it has had with every season of this show, it has found its voice more and more and more and more. And I think that, unfortunately, Eric Kripke in particular has benefited more and more from the increasing absurdity of American politics. I think that
it's a double-edged sword, though, isn't it? It can be defined benefited from it.
The situations with which he is obliged to satirize have become more and more ridiculous, and have therefore required less and less nuance. And
that's right, yeah.
There is no there is no such thing as it being too on the nose anymore. Like, truly, I do not think that in the age of January 6th and Marjorie Taylor Greene and
July 13th
and July 13th.
What we're saying is Kripke don't miss.
What we say, unlike some people, Kripke doesn't miss. I'm not saying I'm not saying that guy shouldn't have missed. I'm just saying that unlike him, he doesn't miss.
You don't want to Carl gas yourself. No.
No. Jesus. Great episode of Anytime with Ken and Alden. All about that. Go watch that. Tenacious Democracy.
Oh, why I didn't watch it. Oh, I meant to watch it when you sent that link. I completely forgot.
It was really good. As most things that Alden and Ken do, it is very good. But yeah, no. And again, as things get more and more absurd, as they lend themselves more and more to this hyper absurd, just surreal lens, the more and more potent the show becomes. And while the villain subplot of this season was how would the bumbling crypto-fascist Justice League handle January 6th, the main plot of the show was very endearing. And it's something that, anytime I'm talking with people about The Boys and about what the show really is and what it really isn't, and how the source material and the reputation of the source material and the grander cultural understanding of this show from the outsider's perspective, despite all of that, this show is aggressively optimistic. And I think that is an unsung trait of this show. And I think we get bogged down in the way that art imitates life imitating art, the gore, the shock value, the over the top gross out humor, the memes, the violence, that there is an aggressive level of optimism to The Boys that I do think gets undersung. That I find so endearing, and a show that could choose just rank cynicism as its mission statement, it chooses to frame the cynics of this universe as the epitome of what's wrong. The very self-serving cynicism of Homelander is objectively wrong. Billy Butcher has a tragic, road bump on his path to redemption that he could have had because he falls victim to his cynicism yet again in a way that could prove to be lethal for him at the end.
It's gonna be. Let's be honest.
There's
no way Homelander and Butcher make it out of this show.
No, I said almost the same thing verbatim in the review on TNAP with Jerry and Joe Organa. But yeah, I do think Billy Butcher is going to end up being the final boss, and I think that it's going to be. I think that he is meant to represent what happens when we lose ourselves to the fight. What happens when we are unable
Everyone becomes
to,
the thing they dread.
Yeah, and you have to choose not to be. You have to choose not to. You know, Huey had such a beautiful path of learning to let go in different ways. He had to learn to let go. And I think that left Huey at a place where I think he will be spared from, again, kind of the corrosive nature of cynicism. Same thing with Kimiko and Frenchie. Same thing with Annie. And Mother's Milk, very much like has had his own arc that isn't quite within the cynicism versus letting go theme, but it's still one of him. It's almost in a very interesting way. It's him learning when to hold on.
Yeah,
as kind of an interesting reversal. That overly letting go can also be a path to cynicism. Whereas Annie has to let go of what she thinks Starlight is. I think her arc this season was very much about accepting that Annie and Starlight don't have to be two separate things, and that Starlight is truly only as good as Annie is capable of being. And I think that's very beautiful. I think that is a very, again, for the show that people love to simplify to what if superheroes sucked, that is a very superhero thing to deal with. It is. It's Spider-Man 2. It's Spider-Man 2. It is. I've lost my vision on the mission I've sent myself on, and because of that, my powers are failing me. Like that's really potent. It's very superhero. It's very Pollyanna. And I think that we're seeing with, and I think, like I said, I think Butcher's going to be the final boss, and it breaks my heart that that's probably going to be the case. I've been on the Butcher Redemption train for a long time, and thought he could get there. And my ability to invest in that stock has dramatically gone down. But I still hold out hope for him.
Oh, I don't. Part of me, I'm going to be really cynical about the show. I don't think
after all of that cynicism.
Yes,
rank cynicism immediately.
I don't think Kripke is capable of that. To be honest, like I've never been the biggest I've enjoyed the show. I can only take so much of it as it's gotten. I don't think Kripke helped himself at the start when it's like, "Hey, yeah, we're going past season 5." It's just like, oh, really?
Did he though? Because he said we might. He said we have ideas. We might.
Yeah, but
and then he said, "No, season 5 is it."
Yeah, the point is, he said that after a couple of years ago. Before he said, "No, season 5's it. We've got a plan for 5 seasons. That's it." And then when you come back and like, "Yeah, we're going to carry it on," it's like, "Oh, please don't." I don't know. The first season of this show never grabbed me like everyone else did, but then watching it more, I kind of got into it a lot more. And then I'm not sure if it's the show or if it's me, but I wasn't overly hot on this season. I'm not sure if I brought into the whole it's just the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over again, like narrative that people have been having. So every season has the same plot, which yes, it does, and that's not inherently a bad thing because it's all in how you do it, right? But
I like the jokes about that a lot. I do like that, like most, like every, like I guess all the jokes on TikTok and whatnot of the, every season of The Boys be like, "Oi, Huey, Homelander don't kill me bloody wife, it stole me bloody son," and like in the that's the thing, and then
slightly racist,
and then Annie has to figure out something about being a superhero, and Huey has to like find his own confidence, and like sure. I understand that, but there's also I do love that in the last couple of days when I've started seeing it, it has been this meme of like seeing like really bad analysis of The Boys followed up by that like iconic image from season 1 where they're recreating that cover art, but it's the cast.
Oh yeah,
it's like the murky red bloodline or background, like blood red background, and like the text on it says, "Don't mess with Boys fans. We don't even watch our own show." Which like we need to make a Star Wars version of that. Stay tuned for the other review coming out that we're recording at the same time because I got some thoughts. Let's see if I can keep it PG for the Star Wars show.
I mean, who knows if that might be before this? We don't know.
Who knows? Who knows? Time's a funny thing, but
it's a flat circle.
It is. But I think that there's I think a lot of that critique, again, while I think it's funny, I think that there is a level of bad faith critique there.
Oh no, 100%.
It's like 100%, that is what a long-term character arc is about. You know, it's one of those, I think a lot of people like want certain characters to hit certain beats on a timetable that works for them. And, you know, like every season has been about Huey finding his confidence and finding his voice. And that's what his character arc is. And it ends with him learning to let go of the last vestige of that meekness that Huey had was that like resentful bone in his body because he feels weak. Now that he has found his own inner power and inner strength, he is able to then go, I can accept the things I know that I can't control and say goodbye to his father and finally fully bury the hatchet with A-Train. Like that's a long-term character arc. Now the fact that every season again also feels like the end game is find a way to kill Homelander. Well, that's again the point to make Homelander feel and demonstrate that he is kind of an unstoppable force is that every time they think they found something, it doesn't work. You know, the virus doesn't quite pan out. Soldier Boy, you know, Homelander and Butcher are forced to team up against Soldier Boy. You know, Ryan and Stormfront. You know, like all of these things. Like it's always
there's always something. And I totally get it. Like, don't get me wrong.
And I know you do. I know I'm preaching to the choir. It's just important for me to put that on the record because
100%.
You know me, I can't let bad discourse go without being called out.
That's why I said, you know, I'm not entirely sure if I have, but I'm not sure if it's a mixture of that and never being the biggest fan of it, or I'm just like slowly losing interest in the show over time. I'm not 100%, but I will say I didn't hate this season. I did enjoy it, just not as much as the other 3 or 2. I wasn't a great fan of season 1. That's just where I'm at.
No, that's totally valid. And I think that a lot of people were like kind of preparing for Boys burnout with like, like The Boys Mexico, whatever the hell that is. You know, Gen V. And I won't lie. I was like, how much can you really get out of this universe? And as I said before, I came out of Gen V thrilled. I was not prepared for how much I loved Gen V. It really knocked my socks off. And
I do feel like Gen V is just going to be season 5 of The Boys. They're going to use that to extend The Boys an extra season by having this other show. That's mainly with the ending of the season. That's the impression I get. Whether it turns out like that we'll find out next year.
I think that Gen V, there's going to be a crowd of people who either hate what I'm about to say, think what I'm about to say. I think A, hate what I'm about to say. B, think what I'm about to say is an insult. And then C are going to be the people who I like who get it. I think Gen V is going to be to The Boys what the Book of Boba Fett was to The Mandalorian.
Ooh, yeah.
I think it is going to be an opportunity to get to live in the landscape of what the fallout of the main show has created. You know, like, because again, when you look at Book of Boba Fett, like the main thrust of it is the criminal underworld is in disarray. It is a continuation of the story of what does it mean to be a Mandalorian in this like uncertain time. You know, like and all of that legwork the Book of Boba Fett did, while also teeing up the next season of the main show, right? I think a similar thing is going to happen with Gen V. I think that Gen V is going to be our opportunity to get a look into and really live in a President Homelander world.
100%. Yeah.
And
that's kind of what I was getting at with the season 5. And
yeah, no, and I totally
season
get that.
5 is the 6.
Or even to continue the Star Wars comparison, I think a maybe even better one would be the Clone Wars. You know, because like that was kind of the critique of Attack of the Clones to Revenge of the Sith is the Clone War you don't get to spend a lot of time in the war. It is the Clone War begins, and then by the time we pick up in the next movie, it is the final days of the Clone War. And then you get this whole show that is about waging this war. And I kind of love the idea that Gen V is this very boots on the ground. Like, obviously it's not your lay person, you know, it's all a bunch of soups, but it is your like regular soups experience of the Homelander takeover. Where by the time we pick up with the final season of The Boys, that will very much be the Clone War has begun, and this is how it ended.
Yeah. Easily.
But yeah,
you know, I don't hate it. I'd like to see more Gen V. I can't remember who's the actor that died.
Chance Palmerno, I want to say.
So it sounds.
Perdomo, Chance Perdomo.
That's
I couldn't remember how to say his name. Yeah, Chance Perdomo.
So it'd be interesting to see how they handle that for Gen V, but
yeah, those are one of those unfortunate, situations where I think that he's probably going to have passed away between seasons, the character, because they said they're not recasting him. So if I had to hazard a guess, just looking forward to the landscape of the Boys-averse.
Boys. Not just Boyverse. Boys-averse.
But I do think that they will probably have it that he died in captivity. You know,
I can see it.
Yeah, which again, it's heartbreaking, and it's one of those unfortunate bumps in the road in production that you can never accommodate for, you can never prepare for. It's Carrie Fisher, it's Chadwick Boseman. You know, you just how do you course correct for that? You know, there is no easy answer. But yeah, no, I have really liked this show. This is another thing I said in my own review that I need to hammer home because I have a brand to maintain. The Boys season 4 does a better job of parodying conspiracy culture than anything else I've seen on air. Anything else. I think so much political satire gets caught up. There's a lot of specific nuances that get lost that leave a character like Firecracker in anything else.
Yeah.
Feeling like a word salad of buzzwords and like a layman's understanding of that culture that does parody disservice and does not allow it to feel like a person who believes these things so much as it's like, oh, look at this Muppet who just has like a lot of like disconnected ideas. And I think in a weird way that tends to end up being dehumanizing. That you kind of lose the ability to like grapple with, oh, how can a normal person think these things? Yes, you're right. It is absurd. No one's going to tell you that it's not. But I think
people do.
But the very interesting like way that swings back around is, but why do they believe these things? And I think that Firecracker is such an amazing distillation of the ways that you do have the continuum of, do you believe what you're saying? Do you not believe what you're saying? And are you somewhere in between? How much of this is a dog whistle? How much of this is sincere? You know, which is a conversation that is sometimes more or less worth having, depending on the figure in that world. But you see at the end of the day, what Firecracker believes is there are people who are hurting. There are people who don't understand their place in the world right now, and they need answers, and I'd like to give them some. Whether or not those answers are
I was just saying whether it's right or wrong,
or ethical, whether what she's saying is objectively heinous, which it is, regardless of the truth of anything she's anything that's true of what she's saying. At the end of the day, it's answers, and it's easy answers, and it gives you a place to direct your rage. And
it's the answers people want to hear.
It's the answers people want to hear. One could argue that is the crux of modern day conservatism is easy answers right here. Like that is like, again, it is a facet that is easily lost. A lot of people want to focus on, they sell supplements and come get your ding dong pills and your super male vitality and your brain force plus and ultra iodine, whatever. And yeah, sure, they're hucksters, they're grifters, but also they're people, and they got there somehow. And whether or not they're deserving of our sympathy is a different conversation than are they humans and how did they wind themselves up into this knot?
Yeah.
And again, I think that is a more interesting discussion than just, screaming Jewish space lasers while you have somebody with like a bronzer tan and bad blonde wig. Butch body, bad built, bleach blonde. Or
say that fast 5 times.
No. I am the guy who was raked over the coals for not knowing how to say the name of the 4th Thor movie too quickly. So
what's that movie?
Thor, Love and Thunder. Not to be confused.
To be fair, I can't take the piss out of anyone. I've got a right mush mouth.
Not to be mistaken with my favorite Thor movie, Thor, Thov and Lunder, as I called it more times than I could count on air.
Nice. Classic.
Tune into the Nerd Academy podcast to see a guy who wants to be a professional talker not know how to talk. But another element
more than most
like
people.
at least when I do form a sentence, it makes sense and I have something to say. Unlike AI slop Dark Empire.
Yeah. Anyway, the boys. Yeah.
The boys.
Kimiko. Fantastic arc.
I loved Kimiko this season. And on the Kimiko thing, one last thing on the conspiracy stuff. One very important element that I loved. And it's funny because I have this conversation with my girlfriend quite a bit because she is so loving and puts up with so much of my weird nonsense and all of the things I find fascinating. Has heard me complain a lot about the bizarre American obsession with like a boogeyman-ified version of human trafficking. A version of it that where it is again where it is less to do with reality and more of a action thriller. It is why The Sound of Freedom it was so popular there for a minute. That and all of the astroturfing of the ticket sales, which is a different conversation. But the ways that so many people who are in that QAnon type space, your info warriors, all of those things that all have whose main reason for hating the elites, which we all know what that is shorthand for, love to talk about the human trafficking, the child trafficking of it all. And they talk about it all the time. And they talk about this fictional version of it where it is people drinking children's blood and it's adrenochrome and it's all of these things. But they end up making it harder for the people who actually try to work in that realm of undoing child trafficking. They make their jobs harder by flooding the zone with BS. And that moment where Kimiko freaks out at the convention, where she just sees red and bugs out. Granted, she's also 3 sheets to the wind at that point. But that was another moment that really resonated with me, where it's like, no, you don't care about this. You care about this Sound of Freedom Taken trilogy version of this. and not the real thing that is actually happening, and the way that it is actually happening mostly to underage children of color in the third world and in underdeveloped countries, that is. And it's not like white 20-somethings being abducted in Target parking lots because there's a leaf on their windshield or whatever. But as you were saying about Kimiko, sorry.
Oh, no, I was just saying, I think Kimiko is probably the best thing about the season, to be honest. Like, between that and her ending moment, like, fantastic.
Absolutely gut-wrenching. I think...
So I wasn't expecting it. To me, that's a season 5 thing. That's a final season. We're going to do that right at the end.
I hear that. I like beginning the final season like that. Like,
I do as well. But it's just, I think that's just why it just took me back. I was like, is that really coming from her? Because for a minute, I didn't think it was her.
Yeah, no, totally.
It just carries on and now is at home that no, she actually is talking or shouting for the first time in a long time. It's just like, damn.
And I do love how they do that. Because again, like her arc with Frenchie, finally, like them accepting, and I will say, you know, and as I've been critiqued before for liking things too much, because I find more value in discussing like what resonates with me and talking about theme and idea more than this is bad because pacing and bad writing, and I can't define what those things actually mean.
Classic.
Classic internet. What in blazes is a plot hole? But
what's a cameo, Jared?
I'm not. We're recording this on the eve of me seeing Deadpool and Wolverine. And I just need to put out there. I am so excited to see the word cameo get like summarily executed in the street.
Again,
it's
been dead for years at this point.
I know, but like this is it. Like this is the final death.
Yeah.
This is the final death of the word cameo. I'm convinced.
This is the death that people wanted to give it to Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah. Again, the Illuminati were not cameos, guys. Bruce Campbell, cameo. Characters who advance the plot, not a cameo. Sometimes cameos can do that.
Yeah.
But that's not a cameo. Anyway, but I love the way that despite how I think kind of clunky Frenchie's story was, you know, because we really never see him get any real resolution with that situation other than like accepting he has to come help his friends. You know, I really wish, and again, I don't know how I would have written this. So I can't begin to be like, oh, you should have done da 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 da. I can't do that. I don't know. But what I do think would have been interesting, what I do think would have been valuable, is allowing Frenchie to experience some type of crucible of realizing, yes, you did these things, but look how far you've grown beyond it.
Yeah.
And by the time he is brought back into the fold after being out of the show for like an episode and a half, 2 episodes, that he's just kind of thrown back into having to do something that will result in death and doesn't really get that time to accept that, like, yes, like you did these heinous things. And despite thinking that you are beyond forgiveness, you have worked towards helping people in the aggregate so much that, yes, there are going to be people who cannot forgive you, and maybe they shouldn't, and maybe they can't. And it's up to you to accept that you will not ever experience carte blanche forgiveness. What you can do is do as much good as you can now. And I wish that idea had been more thoroughly communicated with him. And I wish that
maybe because he was actually making like a genocide virus, and that's why he's.
Yeah, but also, again, I do appreciate the fact that they very efficiently sidestepped what I thought was going to be the point here of the argument being, do we risk it all to take on Homelander mano a mano, or do we kill millions? And I like that they kind of sidestepped that, and the boys, again, showing that this show is in many ways about radical optimism, chose, no, we gotta make a version that is so distilled that is not an option that we can even consider for a moment. And that even Butcher, and granted he is kind of at his like high point of optimism and humanity when he's like, I did not sign up for a bloody genocide. You can step off. Is kind of at a high there. But anyway, I do wish we got a little bit more of Frenchie because I do love where Kimiko's story goes. Where, you know, we see her go through almost the exact thing I just talked about with Frenchie about accepting what you did wrong, accepting some will never forgive you. With Kimiko, there's that extra layer of, I also didn't really have a say in a lot of this for a good while.
No, that's why they didn't do it, because they didn't want. Obviously, that's their character arc, right? They are supposed to have the same thing, but they didn't want to drive it home at the same time. It's like, no, we let's give it to Kimiko first, get Kimiko to one point, and then we can nuance that into season 5 for Frenchie. Maybe.
No. But yeah, I did love where it ended, and again, it is the distillation of Kimiko's like final hurdle is I still find myself unable to speak because of this profound trauma. And that manifesting in I have accepted not only can I love myself, and I am worthy of the love of others, that in that moment it is manifested as her being able to put a voice to her feelings for the first time in a like defiance of having that love taken away from her. Absolutely loved. I absolutely love where we end with Kimiko for sure.
So I think I enjoyed where everyone ends up in this season. Maybe no, I'm not even gonna say Butcher, and I wasn't, but because where else can Butcher end up, really? I know you like the idea of Butcher redemption, but
I think it can happen. I think it can happen still.
Part of me thinks it will be the bad ending if it does happen. I'm not sure if that's a good way to end the show, to be honest.
Let me say this. Do I think Butcher survives? I think I like Butcher. I like Butcher's odds of dying. I think it is all a matter of. I think it's all a matter of how Butcher chooses to go out. I think that Butcher could choose to do the right thing and pay for it with his life, because he's let this situation get so far out of control that all he can do is lay his life down, but do so for the right reasons. It is, that's a theme that I love about. You guys know my bag, so here goes another Star Wars parallel. It's a theme. No, it's a theme in Star Wars Rebels, and it's a theme in Andor. That whole idea of how we choose to fight is just as important as what we're fighting for.
Yeah, I just don't know if that gives Butcher any redemption, though.
No, I mean, again, redemption is a tricky thing. Those are one of those things where it's like, who all can he be redeemed in the eyes of? Who all can forgive him? If Butcher lays his life down in the right way for the right reasons, will Huey forgive him and mourn him? Yes. Will MM? Probably. Will Frenchie? Almost certainly. Will Annie? She'll be there for Huey. Or maybe what he does is enough to even win Annie over at the end, and they're able to remember him as a flawed man who is able to stand as an example as like how we learn to accept the ugliness of the world and stand against it for the better. And yeah, I do love where that ends. And I think it's really interesting that this season ends with everybody but Starlight being captured. Like, that's heavy. And that starts us out in a very interesting place. I mean, everybody but Starlight and Butcher, of course. Which again, I think that does tee up like Annie and Butcher finally having their own heart-to-heart in the 5th season and getting to have a moment to each other and be like, and be able to commiserate about this is how the world shaped us to be things that we never wanted to be, and them accepting that ugliness. And I think maybe the lessons that Annie learned this season being something she can pass on to Butcher, and for Butcher to learn from, from the least likely place, that it's the two that have always been at odds, because they've both been battling for Huey's soul for so long.
Yeah.
That letting them realize what they have as similarities could be a very big step forward for them to learn to accept the other one.
Do you think Ryan makes it out of season 5?
I think Ryan is. I
don't think he does. I'm not banking on it anyway.
Very similarly to so this is a kind of, again, like weird, like, continuum. You and I find each other on Pro and Noob a lot, where you will ask me, oh, so if this thing doesn't happen the way you think it will you not like it? To which 9 times out of 10, my answer is there is a difference between what I think should/could/would happen and the story being told as it was meant to be. And
Not that I was asking that question, but yeah.
No, but so this is the rare moment where I am going to answer in the opposite direction than I normally do. Where it's going to be a tough sell to me thematically for this show, for me personally, if Ryan dies.
Interesting.
If Ryan dies, and if Ryan is killed by the boys because he's been fully Homelander pilled, or if Ryan is brutally murdered by Homelander because he chose to do the right thing, either of those outcomes, for me personally, don't quite jive for me.
Any particular reason why? Because Homelander taking out Ryan, I can 100% see.
I think Ryan is meant to be the heart and soul of what this show is meant to be about.
Yeah.
I think that Ryan is meant to be a distillation of, again, that you can choose to let the ugliness of the world mar your soul and destroy you from the inside out and make you a fundamentally awful human being.
Yeah.
Or you can choose radical levels of optimism and refuse to let that cynicism consume you and everything you believe and stand for. And I think to let Ryan die by the hand of Homelander, I think it, at the end of the day, works to, first of all, negate the arc of one of the main characters. I think even if Butcher dies, even if Butcher is killed by the boys.
When Butcher's killed.
However,
even if he lives.
However Butcher dies, be it by the hand of the boys, be it by the hand of Homelander, be it by his own hand and whatever. If Butcher dies, Ryan needs to remember that what he just watched die is every horrible part of Butcher that killed all of the beautiful parts.
Yeah, yeah.
So for my money, assuming Butcher does not make it out, which is the odds-on favorite outcome, I think that it becomes hollow if Ryan does not get to carry on the legacy of what Billy Butcher wanted to be. And that, I think, ends up being a little hollow. And again,
but
I think that the show...
I think a complete twist on that and have it so it's like someone like Annie. Like Starlight is then the one. Like something can drastically go down and then she's the one that carries that forward.
Maybe. And I would even go so far as to say that if Ryan gives his life in sacrifice, I could get down with that potentially. But for Ryan to die, for Ryan to be killed, I think I should put it like that. For Ryan to be killed, I think will, for me, as it stands, what I see happening with the show, that kind of takes me aback in a not great way. Because again, I think so much of it is Ryan needs to be proof that the world is worth fighting for and that nobody can truly be lost. And that it is all up to the person walking down a dark path to turn around. No matter how far down along that path they are, they can still turn around. It's what we've seen with A-Train. It's what we've seen. Ashley and A-Train were kind of passing ships in the night this season, right?
Yeah.
A-Train learned to reclaim his personhood, reclaim himself, and go, no, even if it costs me my life, I'm going to do the right thing. I will die doing the right thing if I have to. Where Ashley's fear has allowed her to walk further and further and further and further and further into this dark path, where now her life is on the line. She sees truly how disposable she is. And now we don't know what will become of her, because she refused those opportunities to truly do the right thing and turn around, right? I think a similar thing is at play with Ryan. If he does do the right thing, it proves that that the best parts of Butcher were right. And even if Butcher dies on the dark side, as it were, the final choices he made were wrong, but the best choices he made were objectively correct and right. And that cynicism represented by, dark Venom Butcher, represented by, the calculated nature that, again, as sincerely caring as Mallory was, there was still a cynicism to her, a desperation to her that, ended up undoing so much of that work. I think it proves that the radical optimism is the way. And I think that's what the show has been trying to say. And I think if Ryan is forced to be killed by the boys, God forbid Butcher, that I think the show kind of chooses to go in a very dark, cynical place. And I think it would be abrupt for how far we've gotten into the show with it having this much heart. I think it would be disappointing for me. So yeah, that I hope this show ends with Ryan ideally surviving and being like the final piece of the equation to defeat Homelander. Not doing it because he was told to, not standing with Homelander because he was told to, but doing it because he himself has accepted it was the right thing to do. And I my hope, and maybe I'm just some idiot who likes Marvel movies too much. My hope is that this show ends with the mission statement of, or with like the final thesis of, heroes do exist.
Yeah.
If the show begins with this, what if superheroes were real and sucked? Because there's no such thing as heroes, and heroes aren't a thing to be worshipped.
I think it's probably what Gen V's here for.
I think that's part of it. I think that is absolutely part of it. Is like,
it's like, hey, here's like here's My Hero Academia. Like, this is where we are right now.
Yeah.
For all purposes, they've made like the My Villain Academia, I should say, ironically.
Yeah. And I think that it would be beautiful if the show was like, heroes are unrealistic because no one can have that kind of power and be trusted with it, and corruption and power and all of those things and all those ideas, to then end at heroes are real, not born out of powers, but born out of the aspiration and desire to help people. I think like starting here and ending here would be so beautiful. And
we start with the bad Superman, we end with a Superman.
We end with a Superman. Yes.
Yeah, I can see it. I think that's probably that. I suppose you kind of got to end this show at that point, like at literally that point, right?
Yeah, and then because you end that main story, then you can have, again, if they choose to do it, a handful of spinoffs to be like, and what does this world now look like when there are real heroes in it?
Don't want it.
Maybe not, but I'm always down to see somebody's vision.
I mean, sure, but I think it's the irony of the boys as a whole, right? So look, Disney make fun capitalism. Then it's the boys Mexico, Gen V, whatever else you're gonna have. It's like I get it, but
I think for me though,
I missed a time where things had an end.
Yeah.
A minute.
Oh, I totally get that. For me, I maybe I'm just a dumb consumer.
First thing, will I still watch it? Yeah. Will I enjoy it? Probably. Will I be like, I kind of wish it ended there? More than likely.
Well, for me, it's all a matter of the sandbox, and again, and this is my outlook on almost all media is colored by me growing up with Star Wars being my number one thing. And loving watching those themes develop and evolve on itself, like not necessarily in perpetuity, but seeing that like these of like this chain of events here will not only have long lasting ramifications, but we will also see this morality play out over and over and over again in different ways, and the different lessons we can learn from that. And I think that some of the best storytelling we've gotten in recent time has been going, okay, what was the end message here? Let's continue that. Let's see what the next step of that is. It is how we end up with incredible stories like Logan, like The Last Jedi, like, the Spider-Verse movies, where it is, we have this idea of what this means. Let's build upon it. And I think for a piece of media as deconstructive as The Boys, to then have to grapple at some point with just a straight up superhero story, where it's like, oh yes, heroes can be, we actually can aspire to be heroes. That is attainable. It's just a lot of hard decisions you have to make to get there, and to refuse that cynicism. I think the next logical step to that story is, if you want to have the story end and then a new story begin in the same line of, okay, now let's see how easy it really is to keep making those decisions and to not make the same mistakes as before. Now that you are in control, now that Ryan and Starlight and A-Train and the Gen V kids, like all of you guys, like you are the new seven. You are the new seven. Now it's time to actually be heroes. What does that mean? I think there's a there.
I absolutely I agree. I think you made a very good point. There is something there that needs to be a movie. That's got to be that's a one-off.
Perhaps
like a Logan. Like, you don't need to make Logan into a, what is it, 8 episodes?
Yeah.
Is it 8? Like, Logan hasn't got to be that long. Logan works in 2.5 hours. Do something like that. Yeah.
I agree. Yeah. But and I also think, and again, these are one of those, I know this isn't the thing. I know that you're not saying this, but it's just one of those, I need to put this on the record as well, though. It bothers me when people it bothers me in that very flippant way of, the boys wanted to parody superhero culture, but then they did all their spinoffs. You became the thing you swore to destroy. The Boys has never been, this version of The Boys has never been a superhero parody. It has been a
I don't know about that.
It has been a cultural parody.
I think it's both.
Using the framing device of the most popular form of pop culture around right now. There are parodies and pastiches of superheroes. But at the end of the day, this is a lot more about American culture, American capitalism.
You're right. I think you're slightly splitting hairs on the superhero bit, though.
I think the show is more interested in using superheroes and what they represent in media.
Oh yeah,
as a vehicle to criticize and satirize American culture, and and the way that the Americas, that the United States of America is like an inherently like right wing like demographic. No matter how progressive or woke we want to believe we are, at the end of the day, like corporate capitalism is inherently something that will always belong to the right. That this show is more, it was more concerned with engaging with that than it is the superhero part of it. That
I
it
know.
is less
I
to do-
completely agree. Like, it's not the superhero part of it isn't the main focus.
It's
I just
in
think-
there, and they are doing parodies of it. But like the whole idea of The Boys is funny.
So I just think the
because
whole
there's
entire
too many
structure of this, like from season 1 to 5, with it being the same thing over for 5 seasons, is a parody of the superhero medium in itself.
I can see that. I think again, it's one of those things where I think there's a very cynical surface level reading of The Boys that stops.
100%.
That stops at.
That's why every season you get it's gone woke now, and it's just like it's always been the same from the start.
Yeah,
it's never turned on you. You're just too dumb to see it. Like, come on now.
Now I will say, the funniest like meta joke this show has ever made is still a Star Wars joke.
Oh, the one was that the one where they had the premiere?
Yeah, where Ashley and that scumbag director are having sex.
Because they're like, we're going to replace you with blah 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 blah. And I can't remember the guy's
where
name.
she's like, like say you're a hack director because we had to have Tony Gilroy come in and reshoot your whole thing.
Yeah.
Which was so funny. Like, it was the most niche joke, like Dawn of the Seven, and there's a director's cut. Okay, it's super.
Somehow Dawn of the Seven, the whole Snyder jabs are somehow not mainstream, or somehow is mainstream. No.
Yeah,
I don't know how that they've managed to get that into
that Tony Gilroy. Like, truly, like in terms of like spoken jokes in this show, I don't know that for me it will ever hit the Tony Gilroy joke. I don't know if it will ever hit the Tony Gilroy bit. It is to this day the funniest single line of dialogue to me in this show.
I didn't expect that one at all. It's just like, did she just say Tony Gilroy? Really? All people? Okay.
And for those of you at home who don't understand the joke, Rogue One had to get a buttload of reshoots and it was completely restructured, and they brought Tony Gilroy in to basically rewrite and reshoot a good bit of the movie. Gareth Edwards still maintains the director credit, but the credits are weird, and he maintained it. It's all weird, and I don't remember exactly like how credits ended up shaking out.
Funky. Credits are very funky.
Yeah. But it was a whole thing.
But you could do like 30% and not get credit for something. But if you do 35%, guess what? You get credit for it.
Yeah. Well, it depends what that 35% is. Exactly, like which is it? I know I think it's one of the prequels that George Lucas only has a story by credit.
Oh,
I can't remember which one it is. Or maybe it's in the original
Phantom Menace. I'll tell you that.
Or maybe it's one of because I know he only directed one of the original trilogy. And
yeah, he did New Hope, didn't he?
Directed is doing a lot of heavy lifting. Thank you, Gary Kurtz. But yeah, maybe one of the, I don't know. Either way, story by and written by are very funny things that exist.
I want to say for Empire Strikes Back, he's only got a story by credit.
Now I gotta Google it. Because if I don't Google it now, this will inevitably be a question in Epic Confrontations. Story by...
You'll still get it wrong, don't worry about it, guys.
Credits. George Lucas. Okay.
Gonna get demonetized.
Nah, you're to cover, so you're good.
No, they can still flag you for it.
Story by credit, Empire Strikes Back. And
I knew more than Jared about Star Wars.
You took a wild guess, and I said
no. I genuinely knew that.
You didn't seem like you knew it. Anyway, The Boys,
Well, I mean,
season 4, so much fun.
It's that whole thing where you know something, but you know someone knows a lot more about something else than you do. Like it might be the one thing you know, but it's like, oh, I mean, I'm certain it's that. That's what I always thought, but I was waiting for that one actually.
Well, you're not going to get them actually by me today, Mitch.
Oh,
but
today.
No,
Oh, great. Yeah.
I did. So I want to know, what do you think about Sage?
I really like Sage. I just like the pure fuck it. I want to see if I can do it. I just like that attitude. And the fact that she comes back around into it. I was like, you know what? I hope Sage sticks around. I get it.
I do too. I like Sage. I like what she represents. I think she's incredibly well acted, and I think the performance is so good that it keeps me from disliking how I think she is a little undercooked in the narrative.
Oh no, I agree with you. Yeah.
I think she's a little undercooked. I think you run into one of my favorite.
That's the problem of introducing characters this late in the game.
That's part of it. That's definitely part of it. I think that it's also you run into, one of my favorite little turns of phrase in pop culture analysis of the Xanatos Gambit of ha ha ha, you thwarted my plan, but I planned on you thwarting my plan, so now I can continue my plan that relies on you thwarting part of it. I like
here. There's a problem with characters like Sage. You can bring a character and like, I'm the smartest person on the planet. They're only as smart as you write them. And while inherently, what she does isn't exactly that smart, they try and play it off as it is. But nothing really changes. You still get to the same place you're going to get to anyway, with or without her, right? But
yeah. Like I said, it's a tricky thing. I think the story, I think, slightly struggles with the Sage elements of it by not allowing the audience to know what her plan is.
I also think it doesn't help that she's out of the two, like Firecracker and Sage. Sage's arc is tied to Homelander, and her story is tied. You don't get a lot of Homelander. Now everyone knows Homelander's deal. His arc. He's over there, she's over there. Whereas Firecracker's like tied to Annie and the boys, so you get more of her. You get more screen time and more development with that character.
See,
so I wonder if that plays a part in it. Right?
I think that's funny you say that, because I think my favorite part about Firecracker's arc has everything to do with her relation to Homelander. I love how Firecracker represents the very real way that sycophants attach themselves to a demagogue and will inevitably end up paying the price for that.
Or have a demagogue attached to them somehow.
Yeah. It is the way that, at the end of the day, you're only as good as the person you latch onto. It's the same way that, despite the fact that we all know that Tucker Carlson thinks Donald Trump is a jackass and cannot stand him, Tucker Carlson, for the sake of kayfabe, needs to still pretend that he thinks Trump is America's savior. And we're seeing that betrayal of that betrayal of being inconsequential and convenient for a time, that Firecracker is doing like legitimate damage to her own physical aptitude at the time where she needs to be as on her game as she possibly can be. And she's not she's in legitimate danger. Like, I don't like Firecracker's odds coming up against any of the boys right now, because she's winded chasing this guy down the hall. She didn't use any of her powers. She wasn't able to keep up.
What is her powers? I can't actually remember.
I think it's like low grade pyromancy.
Like a Poundland Bakugo sort of thing.
Yeah, like an undercooked Jubilee.
That's a good way of putting that, actually.
I think it's undercooked Jubilee. I think I stole that from Nando V Movies. I'm not even going to lie to you. I feel like I stole that from him.
You could have got away with that. I don't watch anyone, so.
Well, it's okay. I don't want to take credit for something clever someone else said. Like I said, maybe I came up with that in my own mind. I feel like I stole that. But no, and I think that's her powers. But again, she should be trained by Homelander. You know, again, if she is anything akin to a Katsuki Bakugo or a Jubilee, she should and could be devastating on the battlefield. You know, pyromancy ain't nothing to mess with. But
I feel like we'll get that when like the big third act of season 5 kicks off and they all juice up.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the way they go. It's like, oh shit. No.
Yeah. I don't think you're wrong. But yeah, again, like she should have been able to firecracker the guy, tackle him, run him down. But no, she gets gassed, pulls out the gat and pops him. Like, well, cool, thanks, I guess,
Yeah. Well, she's not exactly a superhero, so.
No, not quite.
No.
But yeah,
it's close, but not quite.
I said I really love this season. I loved to talk about Homelander a little bit here at the end, because what is left to be said about Homelander. I think that the framing of I promise this is my last Star Wars parallel.
Don't make a promise you can't keep.
I'm getting warmed up for the next conversation we're having, which is Star Wars. Which is me at the zenith of my power on the microphone. But I think that framing Homelander, became so powerful, the only thing he feared was losing his power, which eventually, of course, he did. See how I'm teeing up the Acolyte conversation?
About as subtle as this show, yeah. Well done.
Darth Plagueis. But no, I think that I really love this idea that Homelander's greatest enemy truly is himself. It is his inability to not be in control. It is how he is this embodiment of what like American fascism looks like.
Yeah.
Which is this unsatiable need for power that is rooted in a inherent level of insecurity, that is rooted in the status quo will inevitably change, and I need to move heaven and earth to prevent that change. And he can't. And he can't stop it. He can't stop age from taking him. He cannot stop the world from moving. He has to try to unnaturally dam up the waters. And it's something I find that I think is a very fascinating route for him. When you look at some of the most ugly, disgusting, like right-wing demagogues in American politics right now, you see people who arrived at politics in a very, it was the gig I could get kind of way.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who wanted to occupy different spaces in American culture who then realized the quickest, easiest, and most self-flagellating kick they could get was throwing in with, right-wing extremism. It's how we got Trump. I think that Trump, for the most part, is apolitical, and that level of hyper privileged apolitical worldview inherently lends itself to the right wing, because again, you can be being apolitical is inherently a privilege, because you are largely not affected by the ebb and flow of the body politic, right? That is the life that Homelander lives. And as he sees that he is not fulfilled, his power is more and more meaningless to him. The only way he can affect that change is by becoming radicalized. And I think that same level of, oh, it's a quick and easy buck to get into the game of politics, is something that is very deftly demonstrated with Homelander, and how it can start as a low level grift. We are just kind of saying buzzwords and saying the quiet part out loud because it's like you can pretend that something that is objectively offensive and heinous is profound just by saying the quiet part out loud. I very much like Trump. You watch that roil and boil up to the top to where it becomes, oh, actually, not only do I actually care about this stuff now, I care so much, I'm going to overthrow the government. Because politics is actually about me now. Not just the group I'm a part of. I'm the main character of politics.
I am politics now.
And again, it has continued a very, very precise and nuanced and clever allegory for Trumpism in America. And Homelander is my favorite character because I hate him the most.
That's fair. It's totally fair.
He's just so profoundly fascinating. I love the show.
I don't know who my favorite is. I really don't. I don't know if I could sit here and go that one. You specifically.
I can confidently tell you who my favorite character is, and for those of you watching this on YouTube,
you just said Homelander. No.
It's just that. It's like that. That was.
I forgot you were in charge of the stream, and that. Yeah, I was like, so I didn't bring that up. What's going on?
I'm in the walls, Mitch. But yeah, absolutely love this season. Absolutely love this season. I am full of bittersweet excitement for it for season 5, but I am excited nonetheless.
So as I said, I enjoyed it. I don't think any of it was bad. I just don't know if I'm losing interest as a whole, whether that's because of external factors, internal factors, or Kripke just shooting himself in the foot before the show came out. I don't know. But nothing, I can't point to any one thing in this show and just go, you know what? I didn't like that. This was bad. It's like, no, I enjoyed it. I like the characters. I love the world. I love what the show's got to say. But I think funnily enough, I just think I generally am looking more forward to Gen V than season 5. I'm not actually, what I think about, I'm not sure it's because we know how this show's going to end and what season 5. I think.
Well, how do you think it's going to end? Because I have no idea. I have no idea what to expect.
Really? I mean, the obvious, Homelander's got to go. Butcher's got to go. And I think going back to that conversation earlier about having like the Superman era for the boys, I think that's the place this show has to end.
I hope so. I think
it's the obvious and the only one to do, the only place you can get to. As you say, this show is like inherently optimistic. There's nothing pessimistic or cynical about it. Like, it has to end there. Whether it's with Ryan, I don't know. But
it inherently frames cynicism as wrong, and I love that. But yeah,
you're always going to have it. But I do think you have to end like you get like a classic Superman shot of Ryan or the next Homelander. Because what a great way for Homelander to lose and his own son, like using the suit to do the exact opposite. Like,
that'd be so beautiful. God, Kripke, please cook. Please keep cooking. Please keep cooking, bro.
I genuinely think that's the only way you can end this show. Like the little nuancy bits on how you get from A to B.
Yeah, that I got.
Just do what you've done for the last 4 seasons, right? Like he's just did the same story out. Just the start of season 5 and the end of season 5 is actually new shit. The middle bit is still.
Plus, you got to get the team back together for real this time. Like they need to be rescued. They need to be brought back into the same room. Like that's going to be a big part of it.
Which team? The boys or the 7?
The boys.
I don't think you get that.
I think they could be part of Gen V. I think they could end up all being locked up together, and then you really get Boys season 4.5.
I'll be stunned if Gen V season 2 is not like a 0.5.
We'll see. But yeah,
I don't see. Obviously, they kept out the protagonists, and not the you only ever saw the antagonists in this season. You didn't see the protagonists of Gen V, but I do genuinely think it's going to be a 4.5.
I'm excited either way. But yeah,
I should say we'll see. We'll see.
We shall see.
Yeah, plug your stuff, Jared.
You guys can find me over at the Nerd Academy podcast. By the time this is out, you probably will already seen that we have our Deadpool and Wolverine spoiler review. We'll be doing a San Diego Comic-Con news roundup here soon, likely with the lovely folks over here at the Comic Book Cast. We will also be keeping it going. You can also catch up on all our Acolyte coverage as well. You can also find me and Mitch over at the Pro and Noob Show at Mitch's channel, where he's taking
Mitch 692 channel,
where he's taking me through every episode of Neon Genesis Evangelion, to the chagrin of my psyche. By the time this is out, the final episode of season 2 of Ionized Bastards will be out. I am so excited for you guys. Will it
actually be out?
Yeah, it was
said that for the last 3 weeks.
We recorded it Monday night.
Oh, thank God. Thank God.
We recorded it Monday night. So Ionized Bastards season 2 is finished, and in the next month or so, we'll be getting a ball rolling on the final season of Ionized Bastards. And in between that, over at the All Remaining Systems YouTube channel, where you can find Ionized Bastards, you can also find our little pre-final season live stream discussion. I don't know when that'll be happening for sure yet, but it'll be happening over there when it does. So go check that out. Mitch, how far along are you into season 2 at time of record?
I am still. I'm trying to think the last thing I remember. It's been a couple of days. You had just done like the interrogation on that Mando guy.
Like when he's in his cell?
It's like we don't need the guy. We've got his stuff. Let's go do the thing. That's the last thing I remember. That's what I'm going to go back to anyway.
Okay.
So I think I did make it past that, but that's the last thing that stood out to me.
Well, there's one thing that happens immediately after that is very big, so you definitely didn't hit that yet. I
might not, to be fair.
Did you see us go to did we visit Orox Ryza yet? In his cell?
Is that the Mando?
No. Orox Ryza is Salvage's first mate. That is the reason why we went to Xarian.
I'm not sure if I know that because you said it before, if I generally made it to it. Anyway, the last bit I remember is that interrogation bit.
Okay. Season 2 finale is buck wild. And I'm not going to lie to anybody. I'm not going to say who. Death saving throws were made. And I can't say if any of them succeeded or not. So you're going to have to tune in, find out what happened to your favorite group of ragtag galactic heroes. But yeah, you find me at Nerd Academy Podcast, Pro and Noob, Epic Confrontations, Star Wars Trivia League, and Ionized Bastards on the All Remaining Systems YouTube channel.
Good stuff. And over on my channel, I just dropped the my Destiny Final Shape review. So go check that out on the Mitch 692 channel. Not the Mitch 692 YouTube channel, like Jared likes to say.
I just said the whole thing, you know.
But yeah, pluggables. We'll be back for the Acolyte, or you might have already seen the Acolyte. I don't know the schedule is going to be for this yet. Yeah, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time. So, bye.
Bye.